My man Syllogic was trying to power through that shit. He's like, "Yep, my team is great. Yep, my team is doing
They
excellent.
really
Yep,
buy.
they're really buying into the Atrian system."
Oh man.
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely, yes.
Oh man.
Sorry
I
about
wish the
that.
Rumblers
Sorry.
did better now. We get this dude some better PJs or something.
They had 141 kills, 101 of them coming from, 141 points, 101 of those coming from kills. And they certainly performed like a left leaderboard team. There were some obvious ups and downs, which of course, you know, it's expected as the team grows into their own. But I'm pretty excited to speculate really where that team will be looking moving forward. But what are your thoughts on Dodge? Trevor, I think I'm gonna start with you on this one. Let's talk about Dodge, my boy.
Dodge. Sorry. There.
You're fine.
Dodge. Yeah, they came up in 8th. We talked about them a lot. I think heading into well, I guess we took a week off, but the week before we were kind of touching on Dodge because they were kind of the upper middle pack team for a while, and I think what we hinted at last time, if I'm not mistaken, it was just Sean and I on that one, was that Dodge was this team that they seemed like they were like getting into positions to get to the end game, and when they got those zones, they kind of popped off near to the end, but they kind of always favored like this passive play style. And I think that really kind of showed towards the end too. Like they were not taking like the aggressive initiatives that they needed to. Like when they would make it to the end, they'd make it 4 up to the end. Like the one game we won this past weekend where we had our 17 kill win, like we faced Dodge in a 4v4 at the end, and like they made it to the end. They had a really great game. So when they were able to get those zones and get those positions, they succeeded. But when they didn't get those zones, they just kind of fluttered out. And I think that kind of showed because they just slowly bled down the leaderboard here and ended up in 8th.
For sure. I agree. Sil, what are your thoughts on Dodge there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you guys saw it, but you know, Mr. Adam Dids is back, man. I know there was one clip of him like wiping the comments, you know, that the observers didn't see, but man, that dude is back, and that dude has found himself again. I'm definitely happy, and I think that, you know, they're a team that definitely has a potential now. You know, Lampalot's a great player. Adam's obviously a great player too, and I think that if they can take their game forward, like towards the aggression side, which, you know, we're all looking for, I think that, you know, they definitely will have more left on the table to do and more left to prove too. Because like finishing in top 8 in the grand finals of PCS definitely is good. There were like, you know, quite a few times where like, you know, they would be in the position, not like, you know, and not be able to do much, or like, you know, they would try. And I guess, you know, they couldn't really close it out sometimes, but there was definitely some signs where they showed the potential. So I want to see more from them for sure. And I want to see Adam and Lamp take that team forward together.
I agree. Ryan, anything else you want to add in there for Dodge?
They were kind of just like consistently like doing okay for like pretty much the entire tournament to get them like 8th place. It wasn't like they had any kind of crazy days or anything where they like popped off. So it's, I mean, even looking at their point totals, it was like, what? Let's see. They had one day that they got over 30 points and the rest were all low 20s. So it's like, okay, yeah, you consistently got into the 20 points, but like you only had one day to be able to actually like gain a decent amount of points while you're sitting there watching like the top teams are putting up close to 60 points, over 40 points pretty consistently. And it's like, yeah, that's good enough to get you into that middle pack, but it's like you're not going to be contending at all like doing that. So it's like, yeah, okay, you're good enough to be, you know, a top 6 to 10 team, but like that's all it really is. That's like all you're gonna see from them. So, or at least from that tournament.
True. Gunner, anything that stuck out to you about Dodge there?
I mean, they pretty much hit everything that like I would have said. Like Syllogic said, like I was happy to see like some really good plays from Adam, like just showing how mechanically like, you know, good and gifted he is. Like that was nice, obviously, because he took a break from PUBG and he was in like the PUBG mobile scene coaching. So Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's not too much. They struggled kind of like us, which I'm sure we'll get into next. They had their moments, we had our moments, but it just wasn't consistent. And obviously, I feel their pain in that regard.
For sure, for sure. And to wrap it up, Jbowlerr, anything that you were seeing from Dodge, anything you want to touch on when it comes to Dodge?
I mean, with Dodge, they have the potential to be a really good team. I think, you mean, like Ryan said, their highest point day was day one, 32 points. It was the day they got over 30 points. And it just seemed like as the weeks progressed, they seemed to let themselves slip. Compare them to the team from last phase. I mean, much better team. But where were the Dodge that we had, like, middle of the pack during group stage, like scoring like 60 points, 50-point days? I just think if they push themselves, they've got the potential to be a lot higher than they are.
I mean, I also want to just throw in a little bit of love for Danny G. Like, the guy also fragged out.
Yeah.
34 kills. I mean, Adam put 33 up, but like, come on, Danny fragged out too.
Yeah. Danny definitely put it out there. He didn't leave much on the table. Like sometimes some of the plays I would see, like were like like the hyper aggression was there. Like I feel like if he can kind of have that team follow with him maybe a little bit, it would be pretty fun to watch because man, that dude loves fighting. He loves the smoke.
For sure. I'm looking forward to what Dodge does, moving forward. Let's touch on SDK. SDK was our 7th place team, and it goes without saying that they had a rough go at the Grand Finals. But even at that, they managed pulling off 7th overall with 147 points, 114 of those coming from kills. And it could just be me being like a really big SDK fan, but I'm pumped to see what comes next because I understand how talented they are, but also how competitive they are. And when you have a team that's that competitive, they don't just take a situation like this and say, okay, cool, whatever, keep going. Like, no. They go back to the drawing board, they reassess, they come back stronger. And that's just how it is, and to just get corny enough for you guys. Like I really truly believe like a setback is just a setup for a comeback. And I think that's what we'll see out of SDK. But let's talk about SDK though, real quick. So I'm going to start with you, my friend.
Yeah, I was surprised myself too, and I always told myself like if SDK has a rough week, they're gonna come back next week and just roll the lobby. Like doesn't matter who's in front of them. And I always have that sentiment. They're a great team, and watching them, I feel like the story for me of watching SDK this Grand Finals was more of they were always trying to enter the major picture, like always like getting towards the end, trying to be there to do the damage. But I feel like there was a lot of times where either they weren't given they were fought very hard for a lot of early game positions, I noticed. And I thought that, like a lot of teams kind of gave him, like a stronger push back, whenever SDK would, like have a push for like, a position, whatever they would like, vie for anything they wanted, that the lobby just didn't like, just wasn't as nice to them at times. And I think that there was a lot of times where they also kind of defeated themselves possibly. And I think there's kind of this hole you kind of dig yourself into, and like a great team knows how to dig themselves out, and I'm sure that they know it mentally. But I think that putting it together in the Grand Finals was a tougher ask this time around for sure.
Definitely.
And I know they'll definitely come back too, because they're like, I mean, you just look at the names and you just know they're a super talented team. They know exactly what they need to do all the time. They have Gunner too, so.
Of course, of course.
Gunner, he's got the glasses on now.
Yeah, he just got serious,
bro. My eyes were bothering me a little bit, so I put them on.
I've never seen Gunner with glasses.
Gunner with Gunners on, bro. This is like.
I like this.
No, they're not Gunners.
They're
prescription glasses.
I know, I'm just messing around.
All right, Ryan, how you feeling about SDK?
Well, I think there was one single thing that like needs to be pointed out that I think is a good telling of what was going on with SDK through that tournament. So they had the most kills in Zone 3 out of any other team. And it's not like there's only one team that even comes close. They had 23 kills through the tournament in Zone 3. And the only team that came close was the Rumblers with 21. And then the next highest, 12. Like it was pretty low, like the amount of like engagements that other teams are having at this zone. Yet it seems to be I mean the Rumblers as well, but like they're just always in like early engagements, and it's like, I mean, yeah, you can get that's like setting you up for big games potentially if you're racking up the kills early, but it could also be like a telling sign of like, hey, like you're running into teams that are being like you're fighting early, you're losing people, like it could, and you're not getting the late game, strong enough to farm up kills.
For sure.
And
For
I think
sure.
that was probably something that plagued them.
Very well could have been. They definitely were scrappy early. Gunner, let's hear you talk about it, my friend.
Yeah, well, honestly, it didn't really have anything to do with the lobby or the teams like playing differently or anything. Like, I mean, we just kind of screwed ourselves over. I mean, every team goes through like a little rough patch. I guess this was ours. Like things can't be perfect and you can't play perfect all the time. We didn't really go into the tournament changing a whole lot, and I don't think the teams around us changed anything, to directly reflect or affect us. But I mean, obviously, like, we had 33 placement points and Oath had 78
Yeah.
and Soniqs had 115. So, I mean, I even put a tweet out about it. Like, you can't win a tournament with 33 placement points in all those games. It's just not possible. And, we were losing a lot of people to dumb shit. We were going into late game circles with 2 up, and every game was turning into like a salvage game where we're just trying to maximize as many points as we can. And as you could tell through how many placement points that we got, we didn't do a good job of you know doing that, right? Like, you never really want to salvage placement points because you just don't get enough. Unless you like win or get like second place, it doesn't add up. So yeah, I mean, we just played poorly, and we're working on what we need to fix it. Like, we're taking a little mental reset and a little break now, like I think most of the teams are doing, which is good, I think, after like a stressful event. um so yeah, I mean, we'll be ready when DreamHack comes, and whatever is in the future from past that.
For sure. For sure. Bowler, let's hear you talk about STK.
I mean, what more is what more is there to say? It was disappointing to see, to say the least. They're a team that you would never expect to see in 7th place, especially recently with the performance in group stage, coming out group stage on top, to then see them in 7th at finals. So my one question really for Gunner is like, do you feel like after the first week and a half that the guys may have lost sort of confidence in a way?
Well, we didn't like lose our confidence completely. Like, we didn't, like, obviously, like, no matter where we're competing, like especially in North America, like we're gonna come into the start of the day like confident, like knowing
Mhm.
that we could, just have a huge freaking 80-point day. Like, who knows, right? Um, but as the, I mean, I'd imagine with any team, like as the bad games kind of pile up, like it starts to weigh down, obviously, on the players, and like you know, there's only so much, like either they could tell themselves, or like Purdy, the captain, or me, the coach, can tell them to try and mentally reset after every single game. But like when every game obviously is like something weird or crazy's happening, and we're dying when we shouldn't, and like so stupid shit's going on, like it's really hard, like especially with only 4 games a day, like you don't have much time to just get back into it and like reset and make up for a poor game. So um, the confidence definitely played a factor into it.
Mhm.
Like a lot of times when you come out strong, you really have like you have a really good day, because like it's just this game relies a lot on confidence and how teams take fights, and like how confident they are in making game-winning plays or rotations. But you'll see a lot of the more timid teams that are playing poorly, waiting on edge and waiting on edge and hoping the circle pulls to them. And then when the circle doesn't pull to them, they don't have information moving into the zone, and they are scared to make a play. So yeah, confidence definitely hurt us a little bit, like as
Mhm.
as we were playing a little poorly.
For sure.
Makes sense.
But yeah, no, to say the least, it was probably just for a spectator, from someone who's seen and been once. I'm gonna say I'm a fan. I'm a fan of all the teams, that's to say the least. But being quite a big fan of STK, to watch them stay as the solid 4-man they normally are, to make minimal roster changes to to then have a disappointing final. Like Gunnar said, every team has one. Every team goes through it, and say as a viewer, it was disappointing.
For sure. But I'm hopeful. I want to go on to Trevor for any other additional points you might want to talk about with SDK. But real quick, before we do that, you said something that kind of caught me there, and I wondered previously when it comes to match amounts, because we've seen like different match amounts per day in different tournaments. Is there like an ideal amount for you guys that you guys feel are necessary to really kind of, just in case you start slow, be able to kind of catch up? Because 4 isn't much. It doesn't leave much room. Is there a preferable amount to you guys?
You need to be averaging over 10 a game, like as like a base number. But really, to win an event, you need to be doing more than that.
Sorry.
In my opinion. But like a 50 to 60 point day, like preferably, like is a good day. A great day is like a 70 point day.
Sorry. Maybe I didn't word that right. How many matches per day?
How many games per day?
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry. I thought you were talking about points per day.
I think at least like 5. I think 4 is too little. I mean, I don't mind 6, but I think minimum.
I think 5 is
would
the
be
sweet
5.
spot. Yeah, I think 5 is the sweet spot. You do three of one map, then you swap it the other day. Like so, 3 Erangel, 2 Miramar. The next day, you do 3 Miramar, 2 Erangel.
Yeah, or something. Yeah, it's like.
And when they,
was it PCS1 that had five games a day? Was it PCS1? Yeah. PCS1.
But it was only 2 weeks.
Yeah, it was only 2 weeks, 5 games a day, and they extended it to 3 weeks, 4 games a day. And I think that we also had that thing at MPL too, where it went from 5 games a day, and then it went down to 4, and then everyone had this kind of momentum talk of where, if let's say you do have a slow start, or if you do, let's say, have a hot start and you start falling off, it's like, is 4 games the saving grace, or is 5 games too long? It's like there's always the question of like, is 5 games the saving grace, or is 5 games like the not enough to start your momentum, or is 5 games way too long, and like kind of bores out the viewers and whatnot? Like, that's a possibility. And we think, like, I think that they moved to a longer tournament with less games, just to keep like the regions constantly cycling and the games constantly going as well.
It's good for viewership as well.
Yeah, I think it was good. It was better for viewership. But let's say you do have bad game 1 and then like an okay game 2, and then you're just starting to ramp up, and then like the last game of the day you maybe win, but because of the other games that didn't, like, you didn't ramp up as quick, let's say, it's like you have like maybe like a 20 30 point day. It's like, that's pretty good. But I think like the average points at the top like is pretty high, to the point where 4 games a day leaves like much less room to like momentum build up, and like you kind of just have to be there the whole time if you do want to win.
Yeah,
especially in NA.
I can give a perspective of a player, because I spoke to McCoy like directly about this exact thing. And so from like his opinion on it was like for LANs and for like NPL, he actually preferred the less games a day thing. And for this, he said he would much rather have it be like 5 or 6. And his reasoning for that was basically like, I can roll out of bed, get up, like hop on my PC and be there for game 1 within 5 minutes. And it's like, and then like once the last game's over, I'm, see you guys, we'll talk about it tomorrow, like some shit, like, and then he's, playing games with his friends. It's like that time in between is like, okay, whatever. But he said like at MPL we had to be there early, then we had to sit around and wait for like everything to finish. And it's like, it just took so much more time, and it's just exhausting. Like, and so like, that was his opinion on it, at least.
It was definitely the production aspect behind that, for sure. Because I remember at MPL, like we would be there all day long. Holy crap!
Yep.
And that was like just a burn for some of the guys.
Right. Yeah. As a viewer, I can definitely say like I love 4 games. Like, it's really easily digestible, to kind of get it in and out, because I know I don't have to really, like, if I miss the first, 20, 30 minutes, it's usually commentary. And then after that, it's just 4 straight games, and it feels good. But I could definitely see the difficulty when it comes to players and, not being able to catch that stride because there's not enough games and whatnot.
I mean, it's definitely like a difficulty when it comes to like production as well. We go over 4 games, and it's not too long of a time that we can kind of roll production out game after game. Maximum like 10 minutes between each game. The minute we go to 5 games, you then got to factor in like a break for the production team to then use the restroom and whatnot. So that's usually why after game 3, if we've got a 5-game day, that we have that prolonged break. But after they've rolled, done scoring and everything like that, there's then a 10-minute break for production, which is around 50. It's around 20-25 minutes for the players, especially if you go out first. You've got like 40 minutes between games.
Yeah.
So I personally feel like 4 is the sweet spot for that reason. But I know that players would prefer to play 5 or 6.
Yeah. Fair enough. Trevor, was there anything you wanted to add in there about STK? Sorry, we got off on the tangent, but yeah, anything you want to add about STK?
I don't know. It's hard to follow the coach of that team, so I think Gunner's pretty much said it all. I will say them having a tough tournament definitely made it harder on us to like win the event, because that's a team we can usually count on to like soak a lot of points, and that makes it easier for a team like Soniqs to pull away if they're like in the vibe. So yeah, so that's like, I mean, we'll get on that later. That I wanted to bring up one of the big issues in North America, but like having a team like STK not perform to their standards actually makes it harder for other teams, because there's less points like getting soaked up from other sources. So
yeah, there definitely is that paradox for sure.
Yeah, so
100%.
The way we put it, the way we put it with our team was basically like, if we're playing like shit and Oath gets a bad zone, Soniqs is gonna win the tournament. Like, it's just that's literally how we put it in our team.
I mean,
if we're playing like shit and Oath like isn't in a good position, and like it's just Soniqs are gonna win. Like, there's really no other way to put it.
I mean, I've thought about this a lot. Like, I was gonna talk more when we get to the top 3 here, but
yeah, I do remember that. Yeah.
Anyway, that's all I would have to say about STK. Obviously, they didn't play to their standards, and I know we would be upset, so they are as well. Everyone gets a mulligan though, so
for sure
they'll bounce back.
I guarantee it. It. On to 6th place though, which is the Rumblers. You know, we all predicted Rumblers to improve coming into the Grand Finals, and they did just that. The roster has plenty of talent, you know, and we knew that they had a tough time in group stages, and I would say that they certainly bounced back in the finals with a 6th place overall finish. And sure, you know, may not have been as great as they desired, but when they were on, they certainly looked scrappy and strong. And it was good to see them active at the end of matches, and with 149 points overall, I think they're not too far off from finding that balance to make their next showing even stronger, you know. But let's talk about the Rumblers. I'll start with the coach himself first. Ryan, take us away, my friend.
It's always hard to follow the coach. I feel like the coach
should we go last? All right, we'll go last. We'll
yeah.
All right, I lied.
I don't want to like have Gunner tell me how his team performed, and then I'm over here like, actually.
Fair enough. Gunner, take us away then, my friend.
Sure. I mean, yeah. So the Rumblers, obviously, you could tell, like, you know, they had their own issues too. Like, I mean, they may not have been the same to ours, you know, like, but I imagine theirs were more along the lines of just like not like gelling and just kind of going with the flow of things. Like, I mean, it looked like Los was like, I mean, not like hard carrying, but it looked like he was putting in like a lot of work. And I mean, they obviously didn't perform well, and they beat us by 2 points, so they didn't perform well because we didn't perform well. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, they definitely struggled just like we did, and you know, they have their issues. What is what it is.
True enough. Bowler, what were you seeing out of the Rumblers?
Like you guys said, they, you know, definitely see a stronger side of them in the finals. But I feel like, again, a team that we could see a lot more out of. We look at point totals for each week. You know, highest scoring week 2, week 3, both first days of the week, sorry. 36 point days. But I feel like, you know, day 4 probably let them down the most out of all of it. If they potentially have had a better day there, they'd easily have taken 4th and, you know, been at a push to even take 3rd.
Bro, true. It was very tight there. Trevor, what were your thoughts on the Rumblers?
I mean, I'm glad they played better than they did in the group stage. Like they were the most like improved teams of the teams we talked about, but obviously like those
That was
guys.
easy.
That's true, but those guys. It's like Gunnar said, like SK didn't play well, and they played the same as them, and they didn't play well. So I think Ryan kind of hit on this earlier when he brought up that stat about SDK having the most like fights in phase 3 and Rumblers right behind them. It seemed like they got caught up in a lot of situations where they might lose 1 or 2 going into that end game, and that when you lose 1 or 2, that just like screws your whole game, and then you're playing a salvage game and you're not playing as aggressive, and then you just don't get the points.
Yeah.
So that's what I got to say.
Fair enough. Syllogic, anything you want to add in there for Rumblers?
Yeah, like looking like that was actually a really good point to make about like the whole zone 3 thing, because I'm looking and you kind of see this trend from a lot of teams of where like if you notice how SDK and them were like a couple points away, and they had kind of the similar story of where they got like getting into fights early, whether it's for positioning and whatnot, and you kind of see the kill numbers slowly start to taper down towards the end zones. And I think that a lot of these teams always have the talent or the means to push further into the games and improve as teams, but I think that sometimes they might run into the issue of where they can't push as far as they'd want. And even though they do set up for okay, my bad. I was just hearing background noise. But I think that going into the late game is always something that a team looks to do. And I think that, every single team that plays together and plays every single game looks to like kind of plans out like how is it that we can take control our way from our end and kind of like make our way all the way to the end like as far as possible and whatnot. And I think that a lot of the decision making comes when you see a lot of the numbers change for a lot of these teams from like zones 4 to 5, of where either a team that kind of starts slow will start ramping it up after zone 4, and a lot of teams that were ramping it up very early or just before that kind of start tapering down right around there. And I think that what can also tie into this was I remember the stat of where like how often a team would be in circle 4. And I think that a lot of these come from whether you are there at the start and the circle comes to you and you're given that kind of advantage, or you're constantly having to chase this kind of positioning that's running away from you. Like you set yourself up like, oh, like if circle 2 goes elsewhere, we have a good rotate to get here. If circle 4 or circle 5, if it's like kicking out water, are we ready for it? Or if it like doesn't kick out enough, are we ready for it? These kind of teams ask themselves a lot of those questions, and I think that the difference of pushing yourself past like let's say like a top 6 into like the top 5 positions comes from when like are the decision making like or are the actions like kind of consistent throughout the game? Like are you constantly getting into fights early and not making it late, or are you kind of finding this balance of where you can push people off early, give yourself that advantage, and then take that into the late game? That's always something harder to find, because the answers kind of feel like they come and go because of the circle, depending on where it goes. And I think that Rumblers like had a story of a lot of early engagement and a lot of like mid-game engagement, but those kind of mid-game engagements were a bit too costly, possibly. But yeah, I think that their improvement is definitely shown by their point total.
For sure, I would agree. But Ryan, take us home here on the Rumblers.
And obviously, you can just look at the numbers and be like, yeah, they had, we had a 7-point day and like a 17-point day, and you're never going to have a great tournament when you have 2 days where you put 24 points up between the two of them. But I think what they're talking about between like the early engagements thing is I can actually like go a bit more into that about like the specific engagements for this. So like one of the things that I was noticing being able to listen to the comms was that yes, we would get into early fights, but the thing is like we wouldn't even be losing them or like losing players very much in them. It's like we'd get like 2 to 3 kills or whatever, and like in the fight it would just take way too long, and then it would be like we're scrambling to get into the next zone, and it's like we gotta quickly scout this and that, and like and you rush scouting, and then that's when we would be losing our players. It wasn't so much in like the setup engagement that like that there's no other teams around. It's like, oh, we got a fair fight here, and like we might get a couple kills off that, and I'm sitting there like, yes, okay, we got some early points, let's go. And then I'm like, I can hear them rushing to be able to like, hey, we got to get here, like get there, and like they're trying to scout in, and then there's this isn't safe, oh, I'm knocked, like that type of thing. Oh, there's a team behind us. Like it was just
Sounds
you
like
don't
our
have the,
comms.
yeah, exactly. Like it's the exact same thing, right? So like, and it makes things very difficult when you're like, yeah, you can get some early points, and it's like, but if you're not getting that information moving forward, going into the later stages of the game, it's just makes things so much more difficult for you. And like, yeah, like I said, like we're a good enough team that we can still get 6th place from those engagements. And honestly, one of the things I heard way too much out of my team was like, oh, nice try, at least we got a decent amount of kills. Like I heard that all the time through the games. It was like, oh yeah, I mean, okay, we got like 7 points from from kills or whatever, but it's like you're not going to win a tournament doing that. Like, so
It's like you always want more. You always want more,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Now
fair
imagine
enough.
a world where you guys had 20-something more placement points than us.
Yeah, well, I mean,
and then just think about how shitty we did.
I mean, a lot of that is, I do think that we have very good or my team is very good at being able to handle like two player just fighting as 2, fighting as 3. Like, I mean, they have a lot of practice at it. I'm gonna say that because they're always losing people, so they better be good at it.
Yeah. For sure, for sure. Well, that moves us on to our 5th place team, which was Zenith. This is certainly one of the other teams that I would say has a really strong roster with a lot of potential, and it was a bit of a toss-up as to who would pull ahead for 4th, which is what we kind of like predicted they would end up with coming into the finals, but they finished with 153 points overall and had some really great moments to watch. And similar to the Rumblers, I think the pieces are there to improve overall for their next showing, but there's certainly still some work to do. So let's talk about Zenith here. I'll start with you, Bowler.
Oh, geez. Zenith, very consistent. If we talk about throughout the PCS 1, 2, and 3, they've been top 4, top 5.
No. They've been 5th.
They've been 5th throughout all 3. I mean, I think they were 4th in charity. But yeah,
yeah.
Throughout the year, they've been top 5. Very consistent. The addition of Poon and Shin, I personally thought would have made much bigger of a difference than it has done. And it could have pushed them higher up the leaderboard. But, I mean, there's not a lot more to say, really, than they are consistent. And you probably could see more out of them, but they just need to find their footing.
For sure.
To get that push. Yeah.
I would agree. Trevor, what are your thoughts on Zenith?
They came in 5th place. Like, they lived up to standards that have been set in the past. But on a real note, I think they're a team that it seems like, if you go by the stats, they really suffered on Erangel, and they really played like heavy. Like all their points came from Miramar for the most point, and they got in a lot of fights on Miramar, and that's kind of like the tendency of like a scrappy team. I feel like I know we've used that term a little bit, but fighting in the ridges or fighting in I don't know, just getting into fights, that tends to favor more towards teams that play well in Miramar, because you can put yourselves in situations where the terrain allows you to outplay like your opponents in fights. But I don't know. It's like they're 2 new players. It's almost like a brand new team. And I mean, obviously, like I've said this a million times in the past, I'm a big fan of like Shin and Poon, but I feel like, Poon tweeted out even afterwards that like he realized there's a lot more to like competitive PUBG than he remembered. Like he couldn't just like step right back in and be the same as he was. So I think this is a team that will have like, a rapid like improvement. We'll be going into the next event and into next year. So, but I'm just gonna meme them for now. They finished 5th, So
Fair enough. Syllogic, anything you wanted to add in there for Zenith?
Yeah, you can, like the whole thing about like them getting 5th consistently throughout the year is actually not easy at all, considering that they had a roster originally for charity, and then they carried that roster through PCS 1 and 2, and then going into 3 for them to make a roster change is, whenever you're going through a major change and you're changing on half the team, even if this let's say the shot caller and the support staff are the same, you tackle these new challenges that you generally don't find with your last team, especially when you get to a point where you feel like, like anybody that's putting a team together gets to a point where sometimes they might feel that, oh, like, like maybe if we change it up, we can push ourselves further. And I think that you saw this newfound kind of aggression from Zenith that paid off when it came to, like downright scrappy fights. But I think that they still have more to learn in terms of pushing themselves past just being a scrappy team. And if you look at this in contrast to, let's say, a team like Dodge that knows how to get deeper, while maintaining a low profile, you kind of have to ask the question, like, is it the kind of balance that they lack? Is it, like, even if they do upgrade on, like gunning personnel per se, like, is that like really what's going to push them, or is like, do they have to rethink and go back to the drawing board on like how they approach games? Because surely now they know that they definitely have the firepower to contend with the top teams and whatnot, but you have to wonder if they're like, if they themselves are asking like how they can push themselves without being like, like they can drop this whole, oh, scrappy team like kind of thing where they fight early all the time, and can they take like their scrappiness into the late game per se? Because if you look at I think that stats like of where they get kills by zones is actually really good, and that you kind of see a trend with some of these teams. And Zenith was a team where, they kind of showed this kind of slightly later fighting where, like, instead of like kind of like heading into the mid game, like right at the mid game, they're getting into a lot of fights, but they can't push so much past that. And I wonder, like, what is it that they need? Like, is it like what is their communication leading into the late game, or is it like, do they have that problem of where, like Rumblers was saying, and like Ryan said about his team, where like we get into these fights and it kind of takes too long. Sometimes we're like, we're rushing ourselves and whatnot. Do they have the same problem? Or is it something that, like they just need to figure out like amongst themselves and how to use their kind of like scrappy firepower? Because like, like how Puna said, oh, like this isn't the game I could like I was able to just come back and be like, like really good again, like I was like once hailed. Like, you have to watch, and I feel like PUBG is definitely a game that not only does it change depending on like, like the kind of battleground that you're playing in based on the teams, but you also see a lot of different times of where some of these players leave and come back and either are never the same again or learn something completely different to when they were constantly playing the game. And I wonder, like they definitely do need to do some research into how they get further into the game with their four.
Yeah, I would agree. Ryan, anything you want to add in there for Zenith?
I mean, not really. I will say though that one of the things that I've noticed outside of like the bottom teams, like out of the top, 8 teams, is that they actually were probably one of the worst at getting into Circle 6, even worse than the Rumblers and SDK. They
Yeah.
actually did not do that great at getting into late game. However, they just like, I mean, I guess they were just a little bit more consistent than as far as like getting kill points and like getting into top 8 forward placement points. And I mean, and that's enough to get them 5th place over and over again. I feel like that's the story of like every PCS that they're in,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Because like if you
So-
look at like same thing what Ryan said, like if you look at from 4th to 7th, it's actually only a 13-point gap.
Yeah,
which
like-
is one game. Yeah, literally one game difference.
Yeah, I mean, we went into the last game thinking that 4th place was doable, and I'm sure every team all the way down to SCK, may potentially even Dodge, was like, yeah, if we win this game, we can get 4th. Like, I just think that the stories from 4th to 8th are going to be very similar. Like, that's really it.
Fair enough. Gunner, anything else left to touch on with Zenith?
I mean, not really. Like, they said they got 5th place. Like, I'm sure they're not completely satisfied with how they played and, like what went down. But yeah, I mean, there's just not too much to add on that.
Definitely makes sense. So let's migrate on to then the 4th place Duel, which they had 160 points and they were 4th overall, and I definitely would argue that they stepped up. To echo kind of what Godspeed had said, they really showed us what we had been expecting from them for some time, and it was just sick to see. I was sad to see that Lynxy was going to be stepping away from competitive PUBG, but I'm super hopeful that Duel will find another person to complete that roster and really demonstrate how capable they are moving forward. But how are we feeling about Duel? Trevor, I'll start with you, my friend.
Duel, the team with the blues on uplink, they know exactly where the circle's going. Like, Duel. It was fun to see those guys come back. Like, there's a lot of like they're like one of those teams that we've talked about. Like, even with their old rosters, they have all this like experience on that team. Like, Wooly's been calling forever since since the game has been competitive, and they just have a roster of players that have so much history together, like as a team and just in competitive in general. So, it was. I mean, they just played well. They got themselves in really good positions. It seemed like they must have done their homework. Like they were constantly in positions in the end game and where to be. Where they struggled, what separated them from the top three, I think just came down to like just closing out those games necessarily and like being like aggressive towards that end game. Like if I was like looking at this kills during the zone and where like Soniqs or my team, we start to trend up like in zone 6, 7, 8, or 9. Duel like starts ended up being like middle of the pack. So it kind of feels like they got themselves in really good positions to get to the end game, and they just kind of like fizzled out at the last second. So maybe that just comes down to you've been sitting in a compound for a long time, and the 4v4 fight finally comes up. So it could be like team cohesion or utility usage. But it seemed like where they struggled was their team fighting together in this tournament. But sure. I mean, as far as like rotational play, like positioning, they obviously did outstanding.
Definitely. They were there. Syl, how you feeling about Duel, the other D team?
Definitely the most improved team in my opinion. I remember when we talked about Duel like ending the group stage, and I said that like they're really starting to figure things out, and I think that in the grand finals they kind of showed the similar story of where they know how it works, they know how to get there, but how they how they play in the late game kind of was shown in like towards like especially towards the latter stages, because they made their way up and they played consistent enough to maintain that kind of top like 7, top 6, top 5 like presence of where they will always be there. You will always see them around the late game, like whether they're as 4 or 2 or 3 or 1 even. And I think that these players are a group of guys that not only are experienced, but like I'm pretty sure before they even put the team together, they said like, look, I'm pretty sure they all had a discussion of where, like whatever team they came from, they needed to be better than what they were before. And I think that they all like found this agreement of where, they wanted to bring the best out of each other. And I think that they're continuing to do that. And, speaking of Phluxy, taking a step away from competitive, they're actually going to be playing with Sharpshot for DreamHack. And I think that Sharpshot is a great player. And, there's a little story behind Wooly and Sharpshot when they were on Wildcard originally at the very beginning of this year, when it was Wooly, Keenan, Sharpshot, and Kickstart. And I think that team kind of left themselves with a bit more to be desired, because I feel like Wooly was getting to a point where rather than being who he was consistently being a caller throughout like a lot of the times, Wooly became a person where he needed to not only be the person that takes initiative, but like kind of have like a team that kind of buys into his vision of a team. And I think that for a long time, what Wooly was missing, like one of the biggest aspects of the old Duel was their coach. I completely forgot his name, but they had a coach and they had a lot of good synergy, and they like trusted their coach a lot. But I think that seeing like the evolution of Wooly, I guess, throughout like
Talking about the A-Flux?
Yeah, no, not A-Flux.
That's old. That's too old now.
Yeah, that's too old. Like right after NRG, he was on NRG too. I completely forgot his name. His name was Zach, or no, Kyle. His name was Kyle. But yeah, like I feel like Wooly definitely needed someone to reaffirm his kind of vision of the game, of where no matter what call he makes, no matter what kind of rotation he calls, no matter what he tells his players to do, I feel like he lacked a lot of support from his own teams in terms of like, is this the right thing? Like, do you guys believe in me and whatnot? And then I would always be talking with him at like, like he's the kind of guy I talk to at late night of where like, wow, you really see this play was really good. And like, why do you think they did that? And we have this like really deep talk of, how the game is going and what like, trends are popping up here and there. And I think that he sees a lot of like things that the top teams do and he tries to replicate, but it's always, kind of this kind of obstacle ahead of where he needed a team to believe in him in order to push like, the whole team ahead. And I think that this time they found it, and that they can only get better from here. Really.
Enough.
Zach,
couldn't
yeah, there
agree-
we go. Yeah, Honey Badger just said it. Zach, how can I forget? Oh my god.
That is old school, man.
Yeah,
Alright.
yeah,
For
I haven't
sure.
heard that name in a while.
yeah. I haven't heard that name in a while.
Ryan, what are your thoughts on Duel?
Yeah, so I wanna add on that whole Wooly thing because I mean I just want to clarify and say that this is all entirely conjecture. Like I'm just gonna be giving my opinion based off of my point of view because I
Mhm.
don't have all the information. But I truly think that like Wooly, one of the things is he's like obviously super hard on himself, and so it's like when he's somebody that goes and reviews everything, and like when he is going through and seeing all the mistakes, and it's like, damn, why did I not see that in game? Like we should have been able to do this. Like there's so much we could have done better. And it's like, yeah, okay, that's a telling of like somebody who can become a great player because they go and they try to fix their mistakes and like actually try. Like it's something that Owen says a lot of teams aren't sitting here and putting in the effort to actually try to win. Like Wooly is one, like I can guarantee Wooly is one of the guys that is out there putting the effort in to win, and like the rest of his team is as well.
Oh yeah.
And so when Syllogic was out here saying that like he needs like a team that is there to say like, yes, we have confidence in anything that you tell us, like, and like that's what he does need, like, because if anybody gives any kind of doubt towards him, he's going to start doubting himself too, because that's just how I feel. Like he might try to like argue against that, but I mean, because that's not always, you know, a good thing, but like it's just how I feel about him, is that he will actually like, and I think that was the big story of the old Duel. And I mean, I don't want to call anybody out, but I think that, you know, you had players that had very strong opinions of how the game was supposed to be played. Like I know Lampalot was an IGL as well, and so like if things are not going well, and you have players like that, they're gonna probably speak up, and then there's gonna be a lot of like doubts and what should we do, and like instead of just, hey, this is what the right play is type of stuff. And now that he's playing with people that are really good friends with him and have like his back for everything, you can see like, hey, he's a good IGL that will get his team into positions for top 5. Like
I couldn't agree more.
that's just my opinion.
Mhm.
I couldn't agree more. Gunner, let's hear it, my friend.
Yeah, like I mean, they pretty much touched on most of this stuff, but like, you know, one thing like Trevor said, like they found themselves in really good positions. You know, which is obviously going to benefit like any team, but for them, like, I mean, them being like an experienced team, and a like mechanically sound team, like it definitely helps. Like anytime that find yourself in a good spot, and you know you're that caliber of team, then things are typically going to work out. And like kind of like Logic said too, just to touch on it, like the the comfort level that the team like they have with each other, and the cohesion that they have with each other, like definitely help them like being like theoretically a new roster, at least for the PCS events. It helped them like a ton, because you could tell that they're comfortable playing with each other. Like, and he said like on the last duel, you could tell obviously there was like some miscommunication there, like kind of like I guess what you see with like maybe the Rumblers now or something. But like you know, you don't see that anymore with like this duel, and I feel like, you know, everybody's maybe on board with like Big Wolf's plan, you know, and maybe he could lead them to victory. But I mean, good on them. Like, you know, I remember I talked to Penta like before he joined Duel, um about like a bunch of stuff really, but like just you know, that was one of the things that really motivated him joining that team, was the fact that he was going to be playing with friends and people he was comfortable with. So he was really excited about that. And you know, anytime you have a whole team that's excited to play together, usually their confidence is pretty high, and it leads to a decent performance. And I guess, you know, that's what they had.
For sure. For sure. Bowler.
Yeah.
What are you thinking on the Duel boys?
I mean, these guys have said it already, and they've said most of it. But I couldn't agree more. Like Duel, probably one of the most improved teams from the beginning of the year to now, or from phase 2 to phase 3. Again, looking at the stat sheet, like they said, it looks like it is the later game. Like Zone 7 especially, they start to fall off when Soniqs and Oath start to push up. So whether that's to do with where they are positioned and not taking the fights and stuff like that, I mean, these guys know more than I do. in terms of like within the game itself. But yeah, Duel were an amazing team, to say the least, and could have got a lot more out of them.
Definitely. Was there something someone else was going to add on there, or did
I was gonna say like Duel, like the biggest thing for them, like they're getting in these positions, and they're that team that like you click to like they scroll through the final 3 teams, the spectator, it'll be like, oh, it's 9 kills, like Soniqs 14 kills, and then it's like Duel 2 kills. They really reminded me of like, I mean, I have a lot of history of this team, obviously, because I'm really good friends with Wolf, but they reminded me of like Endemic, like in NPL. Like they constantly got in these like good spots, and they'd pull up into the end game, and then but they hadn't like fought it all to get there. They're just kind of like they're making sure they get there. Where like that's part of like the puzzle, like to becoming like a great team or a good team or whatever. And as you get better or more comfortable or whatever, like in fighting with your team, like you start just like getting these kills along the way. Like you'll just get to the end game, but somehow Tig got 5 kills along the way, and we're not sure, but like he got him. So like so that's like I think their like next step in their progression is taking advantage of like the open situations that they get. Like even if Sonic sits in a compound the whole game, they're still gonna get like 5-6 kills out of that sitting in the compound, because they'll just turret people, or or Luke will do it on SDK, or I got a Snakers. So it's that's like the thing I think they need to work on the most. Like it's really exciting to see a team like come back with like people that we all know who can play well, and they're so close to like really soaking up big points like the rest of us. So
definitely.
Yeah. There was one more thing I wanted to say. Speaking of when Gunner was talking to Pencil, there was times where I saw like old Pencil that I haven't seen in a while, and I remember back then, like even when I played, like Penna was a scary player. He was
that was dual Pendle back then too.
Yeah,
so like I think that has to do with
Yeah.
like the comfortability thing Gunner said. Penta was feeling like that's just my assumption, but when you're more comfortable and like you don't feel like you have judgment amongst like your team and you're friends with everybody, you're able to play more like freely.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Well, I also want to say I wonder if that's also got something to do with like, and I wonder if it being on Duel has something to do with it. He's playing the game a lot more. Like when he was on Veritas, he just he just wasn't really like playing the game very much. And that was one of the main reasons as to why they like were thinking about and obviously went forward with finding different players. And so I mean, obviously your skills and like your mechanics are going to be at a higher level when you're practicing them every single day and playing the game. And like Penta, when he's on top of his game, is, in my opinion, one of the best North American players out there.
Yeah,
So.
It was a really good shot.
He's a nutter. He's a nutter, all right. But that brings us on to our next team, third place, which was Oath. And these boys were literally right on the cusp of second place. And I thought they were going to pull it off, but they fell just a bit short. But overall, I think they performed great. They had 200 points to show for it. They were scrappy. They can frag out of their mind, and we all know this. And they have the strategy to make it happen. I don't think there's any debating it. And I think there's no doubt in anyone's mind about the growth that'll happen, obviously, moving forward. There's a certain flexibility, I think, that comes with those top 3 teams, and I'm really excited to see how Oath is able to perform moving forward, in the upcoming events and so forth. But let's talk about Oath. Syllogic, I'm gonna start with you, my friend.
Man, there was a lot of times where Oath was like, like we would like stumble and Oath would be catching right up, and then we we would have a decent game, and or they would stumble, and it'd be just this back and forth constantly. Where I had my eyes on them because I know that on what was I looking at earlier? I was looking at the total points earned on both maps, and honestly, like we weren't even the like I think the last PCS we had a ridiculous run on Erangel. And like even though I guess there's this context around us that we're a Miramar team, which definitely showed this time around. Like Oath had a great point total on honestly like both maps, like pretty consistently. And I always thought like on like wherever it was, like even though like a lot of times there'd be some times where like Oath and us would end up like running into each other a little bit earlier than later. There's times where I know like what Oath is capable of, and my boys know them too, and I think that there was this kind of like wild cardness around them where we think like Oath might do this, and then they like either don't do it or like they do like something completely different, just go completely wipe another team, and we're like, okay, like like we'll just leave them be, and then we'll worry about our side of the circle, and then we'll just go through. But definitely like Oath, like I feel like their story as an evolving team is around like what I'm curious about at least is about like Relo as a shot caller, and I think that with taking on a shot caller role, it's generally a pretty big burden at the start because especially considering that like Relo like like kind of lacked that kind of like main shot caller experience. I think that he definitely finds a lot more in like having like the team like completely together because there's a lot of times where you wouldn't really see a time of where Oath was involved in a fight of where not all four of them were involved together. And they were a scary team, and like that there was a reason why they were chasing us that whole time. They were getting close all the time. So yeah, they were really good. Props to Relo, by the way. Holy crap, 39 frags.
Definitely. It's nice to see him kind of turn around because I remember Trevor saying that he wasn't too happy with his performance in PCS2. So it's nice to see him up on the boards. Definitely.
He's MVP again.
For sure. Ryan, let's hear it about Oath, my friend.
Honestly, I think we're a little bit lucky that Snakers had a bad tournament. Like that's really it. Because if it wasn't, because I mean, yeah, Soniqs played absolutely insane. But I feel like if Snakers didn't have a bad tournament, Oath is right there with them at least. And like I think that was a big thing for him. I mean, like he didn't have a terrible tournament. Like I'm not gonna sit there and say that, but like, I mean, and it happens to every player. Like, but I truly think that if we saw the Snakers that we all expected to see, they would be right there, like competing for 270 points almost with Soniqs.
Definitely.
Like but like honestly, Oath is one of my favorite teams to watch. Like they're just so explosive with every fight they have, and it's just so fun to watch their fights. Because it's like you'll sit there and think like, oh man, like this is, in any other position, a team is gonna already be dead already, and then they just somehow pull it off, and I'm just like, God, that's like, I don't know, it's just so fun to watch them. But like I don't really have much to say because like everybody else has covered a lot for them, and we've talked about Oath a million times. Like I'm excited to talk about the Gascans though. I'm just gonna say that.
Yeah.
Right, Gunner.
So I'm just gonna let it go on to the next part.
No worries. Gunner, what are your thoughts on Oath, my friend?
I mean, obviously they're a great team. Like I know they're not happy with third place. Like I mean, if that team's not winning, then I know they're not happy. Like it's just there's very few teams that I think have that mindset, but it is what it is. Like, they don't want to be second, they don't want to be third, they just want to win. But yeah, I mean, Logic made a good point too. Like, if like Snakers, like I know he even like tweeted it out that he had like a bad like tournament, but I mean him obviously, I think he did all right, but him himself thinking he played bad, like if he didn't, then yeah, like I think that things definitely change. Same with like my guys too. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure they want it to be first, and they definitely have the capability to do so, but it is what it is.
For sure. Bowlerr, let's hear it about Oath.
I mean, what more is there to be said about Oath? They are an amazing team with huge potential. Come out winning Charity Showdown. I mean, I would love to have seen them win this phase or last, or I'd love to have seen them perform a lot better, but they're still up there as one of the best in North America. Will be top 3 for sure. When it gets to picking who you think is going to win the tournament, immediately you think of 3 teams. You think of Soniqs, SDK, and Oath. But then you think to yourself, well, which out of the 3 do I genuinely feel are going to win this tournament? And you don't know after the first week. You could kind of have a guess after the second week, but Oath are a team that can really pull it back last day if they have an extremely good day.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Trevor, let's hear it, my friend. We'll let you wrap it up for Oath.
Obviously, we're frustrated with third place, but a lot of that goes into that North America is the hardest region to win a tournament in, and that's not because we're the highest skill level. It's actually, and I'm kind of calling out everyone here, I think of the 4 major regions, we're the lowest skill level, because what happens is one team can start to pull away, and it's usually traditionally 3 of us. We had an anomaly this time, and hopefully it's a continuing thing, and it's a sign of the future. Gas showed up and played, but the points get soaked up so fast that you can't catch up. Like, we have to play. If Soniqs gets a good first day and they're rolling, their momentum's high, and they get the zones, we have to play our asses off. We have to play the best tournament we've ever. No one can fuck up. Like, there is no messing around. Like, you have to. Everything has to go smooth for us to close it. We have to have 17 kill wins just to pull us within reach of like even having a chance. We have a 17 kill win. We're 30 points back still. Like, it's nearly impossible. Like, because everyone's just so like they just don't. I don't know. They just don't get points. Like, if you look at the other regions, 214 points wins Europe. I think 203 wins APAC, and like 210 won Korea or something, with like 190 in second. In North America, it's 265 for 2 phases in a row. It's literally like, I mean, they happen to lose Pachinki and Picado, and like they have the chance to get more zones than us. So if there aren't teams like STK performing to like their absolute and soaking up points, and other teams soaking up points, like it literally comes down to like, did we get power circles and Minos circles, or did they get Soniqs brick circles? And it feels like that. It feels like we have to play so perfect because no one else is soaking up points. It's like they're all about the same. They're all whatever 13 points apart or whatever through 6 through 8. It's like, bro, like step it up. Like, I don't know what like is going on, but like if you look at the point spread in the other regions, like teams that lose Pachinki, Picado don't win because they have competition. Like if that team rotates early, there's other teams already there with them and like fending off for the position. And here it's like Soniqs just rolls into the middle, and they're like, "What's up, guys? Like, I'm Tiggleton. I got Nadex," and like he just goes to work. and then it's a bunch of late rotating in people, and they're like, "Whoa! Like, what's going on? Tig's here again. Like, I'm dead." Like, it just, I don't know. So it's really frustrating. Like, and like North America is the hardest region to win a tournament in, like because the region is so bad. Because there's such a skill discrepancy between the teams who know what they're doing and the teams who are still figuring it out. And it just makes it frustrating, to be honest, because we can put up a really good tournament. Like, we had a great tournament, like, but we weren't perfect. And that's why it's frustrating for us, because, like, we want to win. Like, it's so frustrating to not win. And, like, Sinkers, yeah, he has a bad first week, and he's hard on himself. And he comes back. Like, he bounced back really strong, but like just because he was off a little bit that week and maybe it affected the vibes or somebody else is off and like we lose one team fight, it just becomes so frustrating. So I'm really proud of my guys and how they performed. Like the group stage this week, like we probably had our worst week as a team ever, week 1 of this group stage, and like we've really come a long way. Noah's come a long way, Rello has come a long way, and I'm really excited for the future. But like, can this region step it up a little bit? Like, I need people to like get some points. Like, can somebody challenge Soniqs in the early rotating game? Like STK and us, like we'll battle that on with the edge teams. We got that on wraps.
Well,
but like,
when there's good FAs out there, don't take them.
Like, come on, guys. Like,
how about that?
I mean, and leading into like, I mean, I'll just start it out. We got Gascans coming next. Like, that's a team that took initiative. Like, they realized, hey, everyone's dog. Like, let's just start pushing teams. And then they got momentum building. So, like, maybe that's an example for some teams to like look at. But I don't know. It's really tough to play these tournaments. If one of our 3 teams, or if there's an anomaly team, like starts taking off, it's like you have to play so perfect to catch back up. Like, there's no mistakes. So that's tough.
For sure.
But
for sure. Well, that brings us into our second place team, which was Gascans. Man, the aggression overall seemed nearly unstoppable once they got it going. And we spoke about Gascans and their like feast and famine kind of play style, right? Kind of on the onset of the finals, but they demonstrated how to really go about that and really solidified their play style and made it happen consistently. And it was one of those things where it's like, okay, like week 1, like, okay, they put up some points, and then week 2, it's like, oh my God, are these guys for real? And then like week 3, it wasn't as strong, but they still continued to do well. It was a shocker. It was a bit of a shocker. If you would have told me they would have gotten second when we started talking about PCS3, I would have been like, I don't think so. You know, I could imagine them fighting for a left leaderboard spot, but I didn't think they would do nearly as good as they did, and they really showed up and showed out. So let's talk about Gascans though. Ryan, I'll start with you, my friend. What are your thoughts on the Gascans?
All right, so first I'm going to say that I think they started off rather slowly. Day one, they didn't do that well, obviously, and I feel like that was actually one of the main reasons as to why they did not win this tournament, was that their slow start. And I'm going to sit, like, you can sit there and attribute, like, oh, day 6, they didn't get that many good points either, but I can tell you on day 6, they played differently. They played, like, recklessly to try to attack the first pick, like, for first place and to win the tournament, and it cost them games and it cost them points, but it's like, hey, kudos to them for at least trying, like, because honestly, I almost felt like Soniqs was kind of toying with everybody, where it's like, hey, we're gonna have this really bad day 5, give everybody a hope, and then come out with a 62-point last day. Like, okay, but no, the Gascans though, honestly, one of the things that I was thinking watching them was like, I was like, there's no way that they get away with this kind of stuff, like over and over again. I kept saying that. I was like, how are they getting away with this? What are they doing? And it just kept working out, and I'm like, am I wrong? Like, I have to sit here and like go over like, like this shouldn't work as well as it does. And then like, so it's like making me actually reevaluate like how this game is like, or like how like their play style is working, and like, because like there's so many things that I'm just like, that's too reckless, like that's gonna get you killed, and like sometimes it did, like, yeah, it got them killed sometimes, but like, and then other times it's like they come out with 3-4 strong still, and they have 10 kills at circle 5, and it's like, okay, like, that's a good game, obviously, off the start. But honestly, the main thing that I loved seeing was like Honey Badger himself, like the way that he played the game with his team. Like that man plays with no fear, and it's so fun to watch because he will actually go in like 1v2, 1v3 with the cover of his team and just have full trust that his team will have like the angles in the cover that that like is needed for him to pull off the fight. And it's like, the amount of trust that he has in his team is so fun to watch, because like they pull off some fights that it's like they should not be winning them, and they just do.
Literally could not agree more. Gunner, what are you thinking on Gascans?
Well, I mean, I definitely didn't think they were going to get second. So, I mean, obviously, I think they surprised everybody, which, I mean, is a good thing, you know? Like, I'm proud of them. I mean, I know Badger puts in a lot of work and a lot of time to try and get better,
Oh yeah.
and like he had a huge standout performance, and you know, it was it's, I mean, it's something that if you're like, you know, obviously like you know, since you know I'm on shoot to kill, like realistically I can't stand them, but like as a PUBG fan and like as a, you know, just a, you know, a genuine person, like I'm kind of happy to see that like you know, someone's effort and hard work paid off a little bit, you know, as much, you know, as annoying as they are to us and to, I'm sure, a lot of other teams, like it's you know, from the outside looking in, it's just something that you like to see, like you know, he's been specifically him, he's been playing for a long time. I know Oldest, like he had another good performance. Like I'm not really entirely sure how long he's been playing for, and like I know Nico's played in like OS, but you know, I'm just happy when I see people. I'm happy when I see people that really put their mind to something and put a lot of effort into something, succeed. And you know, I'm sure they wanted to win too, but you know, if I was in their shoes, like I would be completely satisfied with second place in the run that they had. So yeah, guess I'm up.
Sorry. Sorry, just really contemplating the murder of Retaliative currently. But moving on, Jbowlerr, what are your thoughts on the Gascans?
I mean, wow. No one expected them to be where they were. I mean, I was looking at predictions, and in NA Pro Hub, a few of the staff members made predictions of where they thought teams would place, and obviously standard top 3, just in slightly different orders. But I don't see anyone except one person who put Gascans above 11th or 10th place.
I got the prediction right on that. I'm just throwing that out there. I said the rest not number 1. So
Yeah.
Oak number 1, the rest not number 1. So
I mean, you got the first bit wrong though. But,
I mean,
So
I
you're
still-
still 100% wrong. You got-
But no, for sure, Gascans out of nowhere. Looking at the kills by zones stat that CD6 kindly put together, and you see zone 1, zone 2, they're taking fights, early fights. Zone 1, team with the most kills. Zone 2, team with the most kills. Zone 3, they're in the top 4, top 3. Zone 4, they're again in the top 2. They're just taking all these early game fights, and as you guys are calling it, they're rolling through the lower tier teams. They're just farming, really, and that's where a lot of their points are coming from. And then when it gets to late game, they've got all this built up confidence from all these early game fights that can see them essentially through the end. I mean, one of the most monumental fights is going to be the final day, game 2, when they push Soniqs. They knew it was Soniqs. They got knocked. They knocked one. Did they back off? No. They're not a team that backs off fights. No matter who it is, they're going to take the fight. And even if it is Soniqs, and knowing that if they go out there and then, they have essentially probably cost themselves first place.
Oh, yeah. I also want to say like that they also probably maybe even got a little unlucky that who was it? Top Dog chose them instead of the Soniqs. That game could have been like the deciding game, because like after that is when the Gascans started to change it up and like play differently. And I mean, obviously the Soniqs popped off in the last day, but like who knows what the Gascans could have done after that,
Yeah, game 1, game 2, definitely some monumental games. Like the final fight, 4 up on Gas, 4 up on Soniqs. Top Dog ratting down below, and he's throwing up mollies towards Soniqs and then pushes up towards Gascans and takes 2 of them from behind, and that gives Soniqs then have the knowledge and the confidence that it's Gas are 2 up. They're going to fight that. They know that there's a solo now. I mean, everyone knew it was a solo because it's 9 alive. And Soniqs then full out push, but it's that monumental fight in game 2 that really could have seen them to the end, for sure.
Couldn't agree more. Trevor, what are your thoughts on the Cans?
They're a team that they did start out slow, like Ryan said, but I feel like they're a team that recognized the skill level of the lobby and took full advantage of it in every aspect they could. And then by doing that, like they recognized a weak team, they'd kill them, and then they rolled with confidence for the rest of each game, and that just compounded each day. And I mean, they played great. Like I don't know, like some, I know I saw Shankers joking around one hit wonder or whatever. Like I wonder if SDK played to their standards, does Gascans do as well? Like, because then there's that one more team like in the end game that's putting up a fight with similar skill level players that are like, because their fights with us or their fights with like Soniqs, I would say, are a little tougher than their fights with, I don't know, like Fabled, for example, like a team that they killed a lot early. And but they took advantage and they played to their environment really well. And maybe it's a blueprint for some teams coming up. Like that team grinds as well. Like they put a lot of time in. Like they were playing the Korean scrims every night or whatever, and they'll sign up. It's Thanksgiving week. Badger says Monday through Friday immediately, for scrims. Like, hey guys, I don't know if scrims are happening on Thursday. Like, we're gonna be so, but like, they put the time in and it shows. And they played a play style like that in this lobby can benefit you like really greatly if you get it rolling. So,
And
good job, guys.
I do want to add though, like I don't really like this whole narrative of like Gas just farmed the lower tier teams and like got a lot of points off of them, because like, yeah, okay. Honestly, I think that taking fights early where teams can actually fight back in like much more fair ways is a lot more impressive than, hey, like we're in zone and these teams are screwed and we're just sitting here with 300 ammo shooting at them, picking up kills because it's free. Like, yeah, you get lots of points that way because you played the game correctly. But like when you're just like cleanly winning fights and you're able to continue to move on into late game, even against like the lower tier teams, I think that's still more impressive than like, hey, we got Tiggleton and and Luke and Shrimsy and Rello and like the guys with nuts shots that are just sitting there posted up, shooting at people
Well,
that have to get into zone. That's just my
to argue
opinion.
that point though, like that's like I said, they played to the skill level of the lobby, and that's why it
Yeah,
worked.
of course.
If they were taking that early game fight against STK every game, it wouldn't be clean. Like it just wouldn't be clean. Like they would lose that a lot of the times. They might win that a lot of times. Like it might be 50-50, whatever. We can sit here all day, but like
damage is done to both sides.
Damage is done, and irreparable damage is done to both sides, which will just affect their points in the end. Like if they take that fight with Soniqs, they take that fight with my team early. Like they can win it. I'm not saying they can't win it, but it's not going to be the same win rate that they have with these other teams. So they were able to just take advantage of this. Like it shows in the stats, like we talked about, like them getting kills in the early zones. And I mean, it just works because, like I said earlier, I don't think the region is that great. So besides a few a few teams. So, but I can't take anything away from them. They played to the environment they were like given, and they rose to the occasion. So
Yeah, definitely.
Who's making tea?
Yeah,
I know, right?
Somebody's like straight up making tea.
I don't know what that
It's gotta
was.
be Bowler. He's only European.
6 a.m. might be me.
Oh man, but
Shit is boiling, bro. Take care of that.
oh man, let's go. I do. It is interesting comparing those points between Ryan and Trevor, because I definitely didn't think about it the way that Ryan had put it, but that is a really good point, as well as Trevor's counter argument there. But still, anything else you want to add in there for Gascans? I know you got it.
All right, let's start with this. It's game one. Top dog helped us a lot, and we ended up like securing out the win. But game two, we run into the situation where I'm like, we get into a fight, at the compound, and then like they knock Voxic, and they're like, it's gas, and I'm like, holy crap, okay, like if this team, the story of this team has been that they are doing what other teams in the lobby aren't doing outside of the top three, and I knew that fight right there was not going to end. It could go into blue if it wanted. I knew that they wanted to wipe us then and there just to get the momentum back up and going like right after that second place and keep steamrolling these teams. And I thought I was like, okay, like this fight is the fight that like everyone's like looking at. Like doesn't even matter what's going off on the other side of the map. That fight was so close, and I had Tribizzle. I'm pretty sure I had anybody else that was a Sonics fan on the edge of their seats because that was so close. Like we're talking, Voxic goes down early, he dies, and then like someone else goes down. That like H-Win does a crazy second peak on I think it was Niku's like on 1 HP, and then gets the second knock. Like that fight was nuts. And then Honey Badger's the last one alive. We're pushing S3. He gets a 2-man spray down, and it comes down to I think it was Tig to get the last kill. And oh my god, that was crazy. That was a crazy fight. And I think that goes back to what Trevor was saying of where these top teams, when they duke it out, whenever it's us and STK, us and Oath and whatnot, it's never clean on either side. Usually that's a very rare event where these teams, like when they were there to fight, and when they came into this tournament, I remember Tiggleton was in Honey Badger's chat, and he was asking him, hey, talk about their playstyle. And Honey Badger went on to say, like, we believe that an unpredictable playstyle is something that will benefit us in the region of North America. And they showed that, like, whether some teams will add, like I think I mentioned like Gas, where like before going into the grand finals, like they're a team that will pull up, and it's either like they're gonna fight you whether or not it costs their game. And you're like, if you're the team that's kind of holding on, and it's like you're asking yourself, wow, they're really going to commit to this? And commit they did, because a lot of these fights, like they were constantly putting up kill points. Like if you look at the discrepancy of placement points versus like our placement points versus their kill points were up there. I mean, like looking at Honey Badger's performance, old list Nikos and Vox and whatnot, like they took like the full initiative of we do, and we are going to do what other teams are not doing in this lobby. And sure, SDK was out of it, but man, they put on a show during the grand finals. And like even I myself, like even Bizzle was like PMing me whenever we'd like let's say I have like a slow game or something like that, and he's like, "Cast is right there, you can't cast him up, they're catching up." And I'm like, holy crap, like yeah, like we all feel it too. And definitely they were there, like even though we coasted off in the last like couple games and whatnot, like they put up a serious fight, and like huge props to them, and huge props to the team, Honey Badger, Old List, Niku's, Vox, Will, and all of them. Like they had a hell of a tournament. And going back to when people were saying like nobody expected Gas to be there, and I'm pretty sure them and they're like like with their play style, they were just like, we're just gonna go there and just like just fight all these teams and just play really good fighting mechanics, and like it's gonna go our way just because we're just gonna make it happen. And man, like they had they had more than double the amount of kill points in their placement points. They had 138 kill points, 66 placement points. And if you look at another team that has around that kind of number, which was fourth place Duel, they had 44 less points than they did in overall. So just looking at like their kind of play style and their kind of initiative that they took coming into PCS3 is like one thing that a lot of these teams can look at, because you look at the kind of names here, and like Honey Badger and Vox were a part of 303, where they had this kind of similar scrappy play style too, but then they had like this kind of like they didn't have the push that they like pushed themselves to like towards this event and whatnot. And I think that they showed that like if you really take that initiative, what you can end up doing, even if SDK is not there or not, like whether SDK is there or not. I'm pretty sure that if it came down to like top 4 being a race of us, SDK, like Gas and Oath, imagine how fun and crazy that would be for per game to watch. That'd be crazy. Yeah, they had a hell of a tournament.
And even with all that, we know Zenith would be 5th.
Oh my god.
They'll definitely be there too. Yeah, I mean it's just their consistency too. Because like you don't really see like a bottom, like a right side leaderboard team make a jump in one event to this kind of level. Like no, you don't really see that. Maybe in Asia you'll see like a team, because Asia has teams going in and out of each qualifier, like going through into the finals and whatnot. But to see this team end up second, holy crap!
I will say we kind of did see that with one other team, and that was Dodge, and then they even proved with this one that they at least were able to like prove that they could stay on the left side of the leaderboard, which is nice to see. I mean, they didn't play as well, but still. Or actually, that might just be from group stage now. I don't know if they did well last PCS, but I might be mistaken on that.
Like, last PCS they were last, I think.
Yeah,
16.
Yeah.
I had a note about this PCS of where like I was telling Wooly, like you included, like a lot of these teams are making it harder for these teams to continue doing what they do. And that was the story, because like if you see some of these teams in the top, like sure some of them are kind of obvious, but like there's a mix up in there for sure. And like the points gap from 8th to 2nd was like 40 something, but 8th to 4th was like a 20, like a 19 point gap. Like a lot of these times, like they're definitely stepping up for sure. And I hope they continue doing it, because it's always fun.
I think the bigger story is the point gap from 8th to 9th and down below. That's I think unacceptable, to be honest.
Yeah. That was pretty wild too. I didn't think I'd see VTS down there. Like
well, they fabled this tournament.
Yeah,
they straight up fabled it. Like, I mean, you had a whole weekend where they got 12 points.
They tweeted, bro. That's like the cardinal rule. You don't tweet you're in first after day one.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, yep, no.
That is a cardinal rule in any esport, I'm pretty sure.
No Soniqs, let's go.
Yeah, let's talk about them. Wow. So they came in first. It's no surprise. These guys were the back-to-back champions, and there's really no other way to describe that team, outside of just saying they're an absolute force to be reckoned with, and they're incredibly consistent. They showed up. They absolutely showed out when it mattered most, and they ended with 265 points overall and 150 kills. And it was great to watch them execute their strategies and have it work so well. I could literally sing their praises all day long, but it was just sick to see it kind of go from that. We've seen some teams who no one's really like called them out specifically for this, but they watch, I know, judging by their playstyle, they watch the Soniqs and they're like, oh, okay, Soniqs does this, let's do that. But they don't really understand kind of what goes into it. And we've talked about that before, but it's interesting because like you watch Soniqs do it, they can hold a compound and then frag their way out and get the dub, right? And other teams can't quite do that. They can't quite convert there, but Soniqs tends to convert there while being scrappy the whole way through a match more times than not. But let's talk about the Soniqs then. I'm going to start with you, Gunner.
Well, I mean, there's not too much to say other than the fact that they played great. Like they're obviously extremely consistent. they win games they're supposed to, and games they're not supposed to win, they're still just constantly getting points. Like it's just like Trevor was saying earlier, like it's very hard to keep up and compete with, and it's like it actually like mentally taxing for a team that's competing for first place to constantly see like Soniqs like, oh well, this game they're in a shitty spot, but oh wait, they have 8, 9 kills already, so it's a really good game, but and then other games like yeah they're in a compound with 4 or 5 kills, but like you just know that they're gonna win based off of like the how who they're against and how the circle is, and so yeah, I mean it's definitely they're definitely up the level or up their gameplay like tremendously since like you know PCS1, I guess, and obviously I think the addition of Tig um, worked out better than I think anyone would imagine. Really, like we all knew Tig was a great player, but we all knew Profi was a great player too. So it's like obviously something else definitely clicked there. Some. I mean, I don't know if it was confidence or just like maybe some information that Tig's throwing in there, or who knows. But I mean, it's definitely working, and obviously that team is just they put on a show. Once again they did, and I hate to see it, but we'll have our revenge. But
For sure. Jbowlerr, what are your thoughts on Soniqs? How you feeling?
I mean, Soniqs played how we expected them to play. Really, they came out on top. Going into the last day, it was extremely close. I think what separated something like 20 points separated first and second, or something small, 25. And Soniqs winning, the first game gave them confidence. But as we spoke about a second ago, Top Dog played a big part of that a little bit, really, with playing spoiler there. But I feel like, again, we're going into game 2 and that one fight between them. And I think Soniqs coming out on top there really gave them the drive to push hard, because they knew that Gas have gone out early. They need to have an extremely good game that game and use that momentum into game 3 to push themselves ahead. And I think that's really what brought them out on top during the last day, was just coming out on top of that fight and then using the momentum to just get more points to bridge to further the gap between them.
Most definitely. Trevor, what are you thinking?
I think it's a team that when they get out ahead, they're hard to keep up with. Like it's like I said, I mean they're a fantastic team. Like they're one of the few teams in the lobby that we look at that player to player they can stack up with us in a lot of ways, and they have some outstanding players on their team. They have a leader with Win H-Win that has been playing the game for a long time, and I'm pretty sure I heard it said on the cast, but this is kind of like a long time coming for H-Win. He's been to be at this level, like at the top, like no doubt, like he's the guy right now. He's put a lot of work in, him and Sean together, for a long time. So like it's cool to see people that put the work in get what's coming to them. So, but yeah, like they just. You know what it is? It's the heater, guys. I'm sorry, bro. Like it's the heater. It's right outside my door. I'm in a log home in Montana. It's snowing outside, guys. Like chill out, all right? I'm sorry. Like,
Give him a break.
Anyway, Soniqs is a great team. I'll mute my mic so the teapot goes away, boys. But it's been outstanding. I hope the lobby gets better and they challenge the people for early spots and like actually fight back. But I'm sure we'll keep battling for a while. So
Definitely.
looking forward to the next events.
That's
For
the
sure.
teapot. They're gonna explode the next event.
Most definitely. But Syl, what are your thoughts?
I'll let Ryan go before. I'll save my stuff for last.
Sorry, I got lost in my spot. The teapot, man, it got me. But yeah, Ryan, what are your thoughts?
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, Soniqs actually played like pretty much incredible. Like, I mean, I'm sure Syllogic might disagree, especially if they go into like much more in-depth review. But like, it didn't seem like they really like I mean, obviously the 5th day they did, but like outside of that, they just played like as well as you pretty much can. Like you have to play like, and I think that Tig, like Profi obviously is an incredible player, but I think he probably would fit better on different teams than the Soniqs playstyle. And I think Tig is like perfect for what Soniqs does. And like they can just post him up with 350 rounds and just tell him to shoot at everything. And they're like the thing that Soniqs does better than any team, I feel like, is that once they get a good position in zone, they clear teams away. They force teams to not want to be around them because they're always going to be taking damage. Tig's going to be like hitting them, shooting. Like it's just teams don't want to go near them because they're just constantly taking damage. And it's like you can't peek into them because you're getting instantly popped. Like they just make room for themselves essentially, so that then like once the later circles start to come, they have all this room to be able to move into that late circle. Because I mean, they didn't get as gifted this PCS as they did before. Like they didn't have to just sit there and wait. Like they actually had to move into these next circles, but they did so with so much room because of how they set themselves up before and what their actions before that. And I mean, honestly, there's also times when like there were games that they probably shouldn't have won that they did. They just pulled it out. Like they just won the fights that they needed to win, and it was just like really nice to see from them. Like you can't sit there and say that they didn't earn this one because they really did. Like.
For sure. For sure. Well, Syllogic, I don't know if you've heard about this team called the Soniqs, but if you have, you know, maybe you could add some dialogue in there for them.
Yeah, dude.
I've heard of
Man.
Genesis.
Oh yeah, Genesis. That was a great time as well. Like throughout my career, like with H1 and without, like I've like dealt with a lot of players, and I think that probably the craziest thing that I realized with this team was that they bought into like this super like team oriented mentality, and like you know it just pushed them so much further to the point where my job like became so much easier, and that everything was a lot more clear cut. And I think that you know like for a lot of teams it's harder to understand of where like you know like how you said like, oh, like Soniqs does this, like you know, and then they try it and it doesn't necessarily like might not necessarily work out, and then some people might say like, oh, they have Tigleton, or they have this and this and that, and then you know like this works out for them. But I think that there was more times where we were a bit tested, especially game like day 5, and like you know we told ourselves, hey, like you know like you know there like bad days happen, and we just gotta go like come into the next day and just like you know we just gotta roll, we gotta get going right away. And then you know like for like to be like we were tested the first couple of games, because like sure like we got into like a circle compound and got into the late game, the first game, and that top dog was there, and like you know like I feel like the momentum just shot off after like game 1 and 2. And man, like looking at the tournament, and you know like Tigleton's a turret, you know like H1's been like I've been working with H1 for a long time, and he's like always wanted like more. And you know like I think the best part about working together with this roster is that they're never really satisfied at all, and that there's always this critical voice in terms of Shrimsy, in terms of like Mime and H1 and Tigleton, of where they're like, wow, you know what, like that was good, but you know it could have been better. Like you know like goes back to all these games of where like you know we get like maybe like 8th with like 9 kills, or 6th with like 10 or something like that, and where you know they're always hungry, and that's like a mindset of like a top team, like that anyone can strive for. And I think that you know like some people might say, oh, like they're crazy, but at the end of the day, it's like it's all about the fundamentals, how you execute and keep those fundamentals and push them forward, that truly brought this team to where it is now. And I think that you know like while you can put together like as much as you want, that like you know like in order to make these things happen, like there's a lot of things that have to line up. And I think that like we seized what we thought was possible and like within our power. But man, like I remember looking at PCS2 and was like, holy crap, that was a blast, that was crazy. And man, like there's times where I told myself like, if we're really contested if we're really contested for this, it's gonna be really, really hard. But my boys pull it off.
But... just stop. Just laugh. Just get the laugh out. Just get it out, bro.
Yeah, let's get it out.
This man just this man just stood up with his ass cheeks. Oh shit! This man's ass cheeks just slapping around on the podcast. Oh shit. You can't post it on YouTube.
I know.
Post it somewhere else.
I tried
damn.
so hard to keep going. I was like, oh my god.
I wish.
Oh god.
I wish the Rumble. My man Syllogic was trying to power through that shit. He's like, "Yep, my team is great. Yep, my team is doing excellent.
They really
Yep.
buy.
They're really buying into the Atron system."
Oh man.
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely, yes.
Oh,
Oh man.
sorry
I
about
wish
that.
the Rumblers
sorry.
did better now. We get this dude some better PJs or something.
For real.
Oh man.
Oh man, that shit is so good.
Hey, only here on FaceTime, man.
Thank you for that.
Oh my
Ryan.
god.
Yeah. Oh man. Oh yeah.
Oh my god. Oh.
Yeah, Sean, you got a good team, bro. Yeah,
Oh shoot,
I
man.
think they're great.
Yeah, that BD
Oh,
energy
man.
don't come from nowhere, man. Holy crap.
Right.
Well, yeah.
Oh,
Man,
good
like-
night.
It's like, what can I say about my team? It's such a pleasure to work with like guys that are like hungry like that, and I'm sure that while like Oath and all these teams can strive for it, it's like I'm here to tell you that you can too, for sure, 100%. And like like the teapot of Oath is going off again, and I think that we'll have
Sorry.
a good tournament for the next
I'm
one.
laughing. I was watching that clip back, man. I was laughing.
We're a mess. I'm glad everybody got a laugh out of that.
Hey man, this is why we're all
I need
this
to get
together.
a-
Oh my.
Oh
I need to
man.
get my sewing kit out, obviously.
Yeah.
Oh,
All right. All right. So
Oh, man.
oh my god. God is God.
Bro, it's Trevor, bro. I keep looking at him. He's fucking laughing his ass off. It's making
Oh,
me
you're
fucking laugh.
you're doing it to me. That's in both ways.
I know.
Oh man.
Oh man.
Dear Lord. Oh my
All
god.
right.
So
I'm continuing like this. We're good.
by the way, I did want to give a couple honorable mentions out there, because we aren't quite talking about their teams, but Top Dog definitely fragged out, and it was great to see him come alive those last few days of the tournament as well. And I don't understand how William became a Navy SEAL, but he did in one of those matches there, and it didn't make any sense to me how he did it, but he did it and actually managed to pick up some placement and actually I think a kill off Illusion. So that was
Yeah,
Mhm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
he swam 1.3k meters that day.
what a legend. What a
Oh,
legend.
man.
But was there anything else we wanted to talk about regarding the final results? Anybody else? Anything?
Man.
All right. Yes. Man. All right. So let's what's up?
I was gonna say I want to see this Gascans again for
Back.
DreamHack.
Yes, yes, that
Yep.
brings us exactly into our next, which is the upcoming event. So we have DreamHack. I know there was some big question marks kind of going forward about like what's coming next, and we know there's some stuff next year, but to kind of round this year out, we have DreamHack, and so the Winter Showdown is kind of going to begin to an extent. The qualifiers are coming up here, and the cool part about DreamHack for me is that we have Latin America taking place in this, so we have LATAM, and they're going to be facing off with NA, and that's absolutely fire, right? I believe the qualifiers for them start up the 28th, and then ours will start up shortly after, leading up to the finals in the I believe December 18th is when they'll begin. So pretty exciting to have something to kind of look forward to over this this holiday season, because otherwise it was just going to be scrims and prayers. So yeah, let's talk about DreamHack, boys. And I'll let whoever wants to take it first. Let's hear it. Jbowlerr, you spoke. You lost.
Let's
hear
go
it.
for it. So, so it is something different that we've gone into a third-party event at the end of the year, and combining SA and NA for this third-party event is something that I personally am looking forward to, because it's as Trevor was saying earlier on, NA is one of the hardest regions to play in, because you have the skill gap is so huge. I feel like having throwing Latam in and having a few of the teams from that region also going to be playing in this final will throw these top teams, Soniqs, STK, and Oath, slightly off their game, because it's something that they're not really used to, and it's something that they have to then adapt their play style to kind of work around how these Latin American players are going to play. You know, as you said, the qualifiers for the DreamHack for NA start on the 2nd. For round 1, 2nd, and 3rd, and round 2 is then the 5th and 6th. For anyone who is watching that hasn't signed up, I really do recommend playing. Even if you don't feel like you are massively a competitive team, it's good for experience. You know, let's be honest, ranked doesn't really pop in NA anymore. There's no real way of playing any sort of competitive other than in scrims. And I mean, I love, you know, the lower tier teams a lot, but let's be honest, the lower tier scrims right now are just a mess at times. But yeah, going in, you know, without getting too off point, you know, DreamHack and combining the two regions is going to be something that I'm definitely looking forward to.
For sure. For sure. Any predictions? Anything else anybody wants to add in here about DreamHack?
Sounds like an OW to me.
Gonna make it difficult for that W to happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you got.
I'm
You're gonna have a wild sizzling running at you with reverse audio.
yeah, dude. I want to see, because considering that LATAM this year has been left out of the PCS process, I'm curious to see like how their regional, like, you know, individual tournaments and whatnot is going to translate into like the DreamHack cycle, because this is essentially everyone's coming off of PCS3, and this is like the next tournament that closes out the year. And I think that I wonder, because we there was there was times where LATAM would be, you know, coming into NA events and whatnot, and I think that their play style and their approach being slightly different definitely like goes with what Jbowlerr was saying, was there they can definitely throw a curveball at some of these teams, and that they have players that are definitely capable, because, you know, like we have teams like Metagaming that's been constantly up there in at the top of LATAM, and we have a couple people from like the former Bitloft, the Singularity roster, and then some of these teams have shuffled around and whatnot. But there's been times where SA has been invited to tournaments and they have shown up in their own ways, and I think that if they can find a way to really throw a wrench into how NA's like kind of like has that skill gap, and if they can kind of fill that gap and, I guess, push, you know, the top teams to push even harder, I think that this tournament would be pretty interesting. I've been waiting for a DreamHack event for quite a while. Obviously, you know, like something like, you know, an actual LAN would be pretty cool, but, you know, I don't know what's going on. But anyway, I think that let's say, like, you know, like through the qualifiers, like the usual suspects come through and the usual LATAM suspects come through and whatnot. Like, I think that it will be a competitive tournament, considering that you know, LATAM is just so different, and that, you know, they will have, I'm pretty sure they will have a chip on their shoulder to prove that, you know, they are a region that like wants to, like, that is there to compete, and that they're not, you know, like they're not afraid to take it to these teams. Because I remember seeing PGC last year. There was a team called W Click, which is now like mostly like the same similar guys are there for metagaming and whatnot. And I think that W Click showed that through their quiet resilience that they can definitely show up to play, and I want to see more of it.
For sure. For sure. I'm excited for it. Anything else anybody, or anything anyone else wants to add about DreamHack coming up?
Okay,
yeah,
go
good.
on. No, you
Oh
got
no, I was just gonna say, like, nothing like too long like I usually do, but like what Syllogic said was like pretty true. Like, I think like these guys have they're gonna want to prove a lot, and to prove that, like, you know, that they're a region that should be represented better, you know. And you know, I think they should too. Like, they have a lot of good teams and good players there, so um I'm kind of happy that this event is going on, and it's just like a little change from the PCS event. Again, like, I've always wanted to kind of play it like a DreamHack. Obviously, a LAN would be more ideal, but you know, we have to take what we can get and just be happy, obviously, that there's, you know, something, you know, in between events or after the, you know, last PCS event of the year. So Yeah, I think it'll be interesting because whatever teams make it through, they might share loot spots, and like I don't really, we don't know, like if the team has like a drop that they're comfortable with outside of like their main drop, and how much pressure they actually get within their region to be forced to back off of a loot spot, and whether or not they'll do it for a North American team is nobody knows. What are you laughing at now?
Just Rhett in the background.
Oh, yeah, but yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. I'm excited for the event.
For sure.
I wanted
Trev.
to say, I just, it makes me excited, like what people are saying with a big third party organizer coming back. I hope this is a sign of like things to come. Hopefully next year we have this healthy. I mean, it kind of feels like maybe it'll trend that way because like we did. I know we had a GLL at the start of the year, and GLL had plans to have further events until the pandemic happened. So like we were told when we were there, like okay, like we're planning another event, and everyone was hyped about it. So hopefully this means like next year we got like a PCS type event. Hopefully we can have a LAN, and then we go into like a DreamHack and a GLL, and like those were always like the golden era of like PUBG. Everyone like tries to talk about like pre-NPL days before like PUBG took it over. The third-party events are always really fun. But also to Gunner's point, the reason this is an oath W is because a little known fact about our team. We started out as a GLL daily farming team in the SA region. We have carved out these drop spots years ago, so there's respect there already. So I'm ready. It'll be fun. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It'll be a good event to close the year out.
Man, like just like some of the tournaments that like a long time ago pre-NPL, like Intel Extreme Masters, like there was like a couple of the ESO related events, PGL, GLL,
Yeah, definitely.
DreamHack, like
There's
like
always
always
another cool event. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the one thing that separated a lot of them though was the different rule sets and the different points like systems. That is something that we're like, now that we have this super set, it's like I wonder what it would be like for all these other tournament organizers to buy into like carrying that super set into like like different competitions and whatnot, because that'd be super cool. Because yeah, like experiencing like all different kind of tournaments and whatnot, like some things just change. Like sometimes like some of these teams are just like, maybe maybe Duel is like a DreamHack team. Maybe Zenith is like an IEM team. Who knows? Like maybe we'll see some different things.
I agree with that. Each tournament gives you like a reset kind of as a team. So maybe you got kind of get in the mundane like PCS cycle, and it's good for some teams, bad for others. But then this random 3P event comes along, and they can pop off. So
For sure. Anything else anybody wants to add?
I mean, I'm just gonna make a point about Trevor mentioned 2021. I'm gonna quote a tweet from Everett the other day, and this is from us at the NA Esports team. It's like we can't wait to share more information about our 2021 plan with the community, and it's thanks to the players and the guys at home watching. That the future is brighter than ever.
I'm excited. I can't wait.
Definitely.
Nice.
Definitely. Well, with that, I guess we will wrap it up, boys. It has been a pleasure as well as a privilege. I'm looking forward to covering some stuff on DreamHack, and of course the future tournaments upcoming as well. And as they all come into perspective for us. But yeah, I believe that is it for us. So, friends that join me, the co-host, special guest Jbowlerr, thank you guys so much for coming in.